All right, so it says that it's recording. So what'll happen, guys, is once we log off, I'll post this to ELC, and it'll be a good reference if you'd like to go back to it and just relive this moment, or to kind of go back over anything that might get mentioned that you'd like to go back and see again. So it's good to, like I said, it's good to see all of you guys on Zoom. And so where are all of you guys in Athens? Yeah, is anyone okay? Anyone not in Athens? I guess not. I guess all of you guys are local. Okay. So I just also wanted to mention, if you ever like to come and meet me in person to go over any questions face to face, I'm also available in Gilbert Hall, room 137. That's also a great place to come and meet me if you just need to um, discuss anything that that you might not want to discuss over Zoom. If you want to come and talk in person, that's a great place to be as well. Let's see, we have Arden. I don't know if you can hear me. Okay, it's connecting to audio. We'll see. Okay. And I'm also doing another one of these review sessions tomorrow as well at 10:30. So if you guys want to come back by tomorrow and say things like, for example, you might have thought of something you want to get covered tomorrow as you're getting really ready to take your quiz, 10:30 tomorrow is going to work. And then I sent you guys the Zoom link for that as well. So you can also check that one out. Okay. Arden, can you hear me okay? Arden?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. Just wanted to make sure. Okay. So guys, we can go ahead and get started with questions and those kinds of things. And it looks like what I'm going to be doing is hosting these types of reviews before each of the quizzes that we have, as well as the midterm and the final exam. So you can expect to have review sessions just like this. And it seems that from the survey, which I'm guessing all of you had selected that you wanted to meet at this time, this is going to be the time that we have the review sessions. They may change throughout the semester, but I think this is probably going to be a good time. Okay, so just to sort of, I want to go over just a few sort of like basic things to remember. So tomorrow, your quiz will open at 8 a.m. Eastern time, okay, which all of you guys have indicated to me that you're in Athens, so that won't be an issue. So 8 a.m. your exam will open, and then it'll close at midnight tomorrow night, okay? And you'll have 40 minutes to complete the quiz, okay? And excuse me, you'll also be using Proctorio as your recording as you're taking your quiz. And hopefully you saw this in one of my previous emails. Make sure that you're using Google Chrome as your main browser, okay? I had a few of you, I think, had emailed me with issues, and I think they were related to Safari. So Proctorio actually started out, it's sort of like it's used as a Google Chrome extension anyway. And so that's just what we want to recommend to everyone that they use as they're taking quizzes, exams, whatever it may be that's proctored on Connect, okay? So 40 minutes for the quiz, okay? And then the format we'll discuss in just a moment, but everything is posted to Connect. If you have questions while you're taking your quiz, or if you have an issue with your quiz, send me an email as soon as you can, okay? But like I was saying earlier, so it closes at 11:59. Please don't wait until 11 o'clock to take your quiz, okay? So, because I might not be able to answer an email at that time, okay? So, but just make sure, give yourself plenty of time, get comfortable, get into a space that you feel like has a good, reliable internet connection, and then just take it straight away, okay? So, questions. So are there any sort of general questions right now about the quiz taking process, anything about that before we discuss the format?
I have a super quick question.
Yeah.
So I know for the format, or like I've taken only in-person classes before, and I know the professors like don't count off for like accent marks. But there are like, I don't know how it's gonna work over a computer.
Yeah, Jillian, that's a great question. So Connect automatically, if you misspell something, or if you forget an accent mark you mentioned, it will automatically count it wrong. But my process is I give partial credit, okay? So I'll be going through each quiz just as if it were a printed paper quiz anyway. And if I can award you partial credit, okay, I'll absolutely do that. But yeah, if you see any sort of like feedback after you submit your quiz that said something was wrong, just bear with it for a moment, and then I'll get back with you with the final grade after I've had a chance to look at it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. There should be a box that pops up when you're taking your quiz that will give you access to accent marks and those kinds of things. Okay. If it doesn't, you might have to rely on your laptop or your other computer's way of putting in accent marks. But if you have any problems with that, as always, just send me an email. Okay. So very easy thing to take care of. Any other questions about formatting or sort of general questions like that? No? Okay. All right. Guys, stop me if you have any questions as we're going through this. I want to talk to you about the formatting now. So I'll pull this up and I'll share it with you as a matter of fact. So on ELC, okay, I have the formato Prueba uno. The only issue, and I'll share this with you now, guys, the only issue that might come up with looking at the format that's on ELC is that it doesn't translate very well on how it's designed on Connect. Okay. So like while you're seeing all this as a Google Doc, it might look very different when you're actually taking your quiz. Okay. So I just want to go over with you really quickly the different sections here that are going to be on your quiz. The first portion is the vocabulary section. It's really just matching. You'll have a drop-down box menu where you're choosing specific words that match the sentence. You'll have a few that you won't use, just as it says here, hay una palabra que no se usa, just meaning that you'll have one word from the bank that you won't use in either of the sentences or any of the sentences. So that's the first portion of vocabulary. Excuse me. You'll have 10 of those. Each one will be 3 points apiece. Okay. Any questions about vocabulary? That's just the main portion right there of vocabulary. Okay. I recommend if you like to use Quizlet or you like to make online flashcards, I recommend using those as a way to practice for this section. I also have a Kahoot game that I use as well. That's posted to, I think, Semana Dos. Okay. I see hands up. Arden, do you have a question?
So like the example that you have on the format, will the vocabulary be like definition in vocab, or will it be like put in sentences?
It'll be put in sentences, so you'll have like context clues that you'll use to decide based off of what's given to you in the sentence. And then like you want to make sure that you have everything lined up with your definite or indefinite articles. This is something I always tell students, okay? Whenever you're trying, if there's a blank and you're trying to figure out what definition has to go in that blank, you want to make sure that it agrees both masculine, feminine, singular, or plural. That's something I always want to make sure that I remind everybody, okay? So for example, if it says el, you know that it has to be a masculine singular noun, okay? And then it wouldn't be, for example, a plural feminine noun. It would have to be just masculine singular if it says el, okay? So yeah, any other questions? That was a great question. Are there any other questions about the vocabulary portion?
Oh, you mentioned there's it's called a Kahoot. Is there one for like each week or just for like week 2?
So question was the Kahoot under a specific week? Was that, I'm sorry?
Like, is there just like one or is there like multiple Kahoots?
Oh, it's just the one. It's just the one for the vocabulary that's posted.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's under Semana Dos. It should say Kahoot to practice the vocabulary. It'll take you through just a few words. You can practice with it as if it were like online flashcards, okay? Just to kind of assess, you know, how you're doing with the vocabulary, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think it's under Semana Dos. I'm pretty sure. Okay. If you guys want to check and let me know if it's somewhere else, you can let me know. Okay, so that's vocabulary. Anything else? Okay. So moving from the vocabulary section, and once more, you remember it's going to be a matching section where you'll have a drop-down menu that you're choosing from. Moving from there, we get into the futuro versus el futuro perfecto. I have a couple of things I just want to mention to you guys right here. So this was when I sent out the survey that everyone completed for what you wanted to discuss specifically for tonight's review. This was top. This was the absolute top thing that everyone wanted to discuss. So if we spend the bulk of our time right here, that's fine by me. Personally, though, I was actually very surprised because usually people want to discuss the cláusulas adverbiales, the subjunctive versus the indicative section, but we can talk about that too. But I just wanted to mention the futuro perfecto was the one that everyone wanted to talk about. Okay, so anyway, so the future versus the future perfect, what you'll have is you'll have a verb in bold, okay, and then you have to use the specific context in each sentence to decide if this is going to be simple future or future perfect. Now, to be able to tell between those two, that's what we got to make sure that we figure out. Does anyone want to discuss really quickly? Do you know how you would distinguish between the future and future perfect?
I think I know, but I'm not completely certain.
That's okay.
So the future would be like if it's like so the future perfect is like if you will do something.
Right.
Like in the future I will have done this, but if you're just talking about like in the future I did this, like I'm going, like, I don't know, I'm going to watch a movie, then that would be like future just futuro. But if you're like by Monday I would have watched this movie, then it'd be like futuro perfecto.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say, Rishi. Perfect. So, and most of you guys did a really good job, I think, of talking about this in your RVC, because I heard a lot of different usages of the simple future. So exactly what Rishi just stated. The simple future just means like in your case, yo miraré esta película en el cine. You know, I will watch this movie at the theater. Okay. Versus if you have like by this point. So for example, para mañana yo habré tomado el examen en español, en la clase de español. So like by tomorrow, I will have completed or will have finished my quiz or my exam in class. So key things you want to look for, all right? If you see the word para, okay, and you can see one of those three sentences up there on the format shows you this. But if you see the word para, that's a good indicator that lets you know that we're using the future perfect, because you're literally saying by this point, this will have happened. Okay, now to do the simple future, okay, we're just using the whole form of the verb, okay, plus the specific endings that are listed in your textbook. If it's the future perfect, okay, that's when we have the form of the verb haber that's conjugated for you in the future, and then you have to use a form of the participle. So like an example that I used a second ago, para mañana yo habré terminado la prueba de español. I will have habré terminado, finished the quiz in Spanish. So you want to make sure that you have two things if it's future perfect. Form of the verb haber plus the participle. But if it's just a simple future, just include the one verb plus the ending that you need. Okay. So just looking right here at these three sentences that we have listed here. And guys, if you've already checked this out, or if you haven't seen this yet, the answer key is at the very bottom of this document. But if we're just looking right here, which of those three would be the future perfect? We have piensas que el futuro haber demasiada contaminación, para cuando me gradúe, y cómo crees que será el mundo en 2050. Which one of those three do you think would use the future perfect? Any ideas?
Two.
I'm sorry? One of those, yeah. Para cuando me gradúe, yo ya habré conseguido un trabajo en Nueva York. So we look at that whole sentence right there. First, we have para cuando me gradúe. So by the time I graduate, I will have obtained a job in New York. Okay, it's an awesome thought, right? So by that point, I will have done this. That's what, and all because I have the word para there, that's what cues me up to use the future perfect. The other two, okay, are just the simple future. Will do, will be, okay? We're just using those in a simple construct. Okay. So, any other questions right here about future versus the future perfect?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
So like for some of these, you could argue that you could use either the futuro perfecto or the futuro, right? Because like for example, for number 3, you could have been like, what do you think 2015 will have been?
Okay, so the sentence, ¿Cómo crees que será el mundo en 2050? That one not so much, because you're saying, like, if you wanted to say future perfect there with number 3, you would need to reframe the sentence and say something like, para 2050, ¿cómo crees que habrá sido el mundo? Or, how will it have changed? ¿Cómo habrá cambiado el mundo? Okay. But no, in just this one sentence, because we don't have like the factor that's by 2050, we're just simply saying here, what will the world be like in this year? Okay. So, ¿cómo crees que será el mundo en 2050? Does that make sense?
Perfect, yeah. But I guess on the quiz it'll be more clear cut like that, right?
Yeah, it'll say specifically, okay, on your quiz, it'll say specifically, so like either like by this point, okay, versus just something that automatically will happen, okay? So, but like I said, look for that marker there, look for that cue that lets you know that you're saying like by this point in time, okay? All right. Any other questions, guys, with future versus the future perfect? Are we good on the conjugations? Let me ask you about that. It's weird because I'm used to doing this after having taught you guys for several weeks, like in an in-person class. I've taught this class before many times. But this is one of the first semesters that I've actually taught it online. So it's weird talking to you about this, without really having, known that we have gone over this in a class, So any questions about the conjugations? Okay, so yeah, all right. So just make sure you practice your, hang on a second. Okay. All right. Oh, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, did I just disappear? Okay, hang on a minute.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I was talking 1 second and then all of a sudden everything just left the screen. Can you guys hear me okay now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure what happened. I don't know. I think, okay, my camera for some reason is not wanting to come on. Maybe it'll come on in a second. That was strange. Okay. So, and I thought that having the meeting at this time would probably work out in terms of like, connectivity and everything. So, okay, all right. If you lose me for any reason, find a way to let me know, and I'll figure out a way to join back into the Zoom. What was I talking about just now? Okay, so yeah, you guys probably get a lot of practice already. You've had a lot of time to practice, especially after your ALAs. Practice with the specific conjugations with the future versus the future perfect. Are there any questions though about how to conjugate either of those two different forms? This is on, if you're just looking at specific pages in your text, you want to go back and check out page 226 and page 227. Those are the two major pages that give you the future versus the future perfect. You want to make sure too, guys, that you focus on not just the regular verbs, but you want to check out the irregular verbs as well. Okay. So, so for example, I'm talking about like the verb decir on page 226. That goes to yo diré, tú dirás, él y usted dirá. Okay. Or for the verb saber, that's sabré, sabrá, sabrá. Okay. It's that small box that's right there. Okay, so I just realized too, everyone's camera is off. Or is that just on me? Can you guys see each other? Or is that just on my end? Okay. Maybe that.
I think everybody has their cameras off.
Okay, all right. Okay, good. Thank you, Hope, for saying that. I thought for I thought for a second I was just talking into the void because I thought that I had everybody up, but for some reason it just went away. All right, I'm trying to turn my camera back on, but it's not for some reason. It just gives me that one screen. Like I'm not sure what.
Are you showing me anything right now?
Am I showing? Am I on like screen share right now?
Yeah, all this is
No.
like a black screen.
Yeah, I don't have. I think. Well, I have. Okay. Let me see. Okay. Yeah, I don't have it. I don't have screen share up just yet, but I'm trying to. Okay.
Do you have anything covered in the camera by any chance?
Well, okay. So what I. Oh, hang on a minute. I think. There we go. Okay, I'm back. I don't know what I just did. Okay. Spoiler alert, just because your instructor teaches an online course does not mean that they know a lot with technology. Okay, I just want to make that known. I'm not 100% tech savvy, but yeah, I am teaching an online class. I know more about the content than the actual delivery of the content. We'll say that. Okay, anyway, so I was talking to you just now about the conjugations, future versus the future perfect. Any other questions about when to use those two forms? If not, we can go directly into the subjunctive versus the indicative. Any questions about those?
I actually have a question on the future perfect conjugation.
Absolutely. Mhm.
So it'll always be paired with aber and you'll conjugate that for the future. And then the the past participle, you'll always just do auto or ito for when you conjugate that.
Right. Now, the other thing that you want to mention, I'm glad you mentioned the Arden because that reminds me of something that you definitely want to remember. So you are conjugating the form of the verb haber to fit your sentence. Okay, so this is abre, abras, abra, abremos, abres, and then abran. Okay. Just as a quick thing too, someone had asked us in an email the other day. The vosotros form you won't have on your quiz, but just in case you're wondering, it's there. Abres, for example. But the participle that Arden just mentioned, okay, is going to have either or either if it's a regular verb. Okay, so for example, yo habré hablado, ustedes habrán vivido. Okay, this is regular verbs, hablar and vivir. Now, there are some verbs that are irregular. Okay, and I don't think it's listed here in your textbook. I have your textbook in front of me. You do have a couple of verbs that have irregular participles, okay? And if you check back, I'm just trying to see if we have like a list somewhere. Okay, I think this is in chapter 4. Give me 1 second, guys. I just want to check in your textbook. Because I know I've had this issue in the past. The issue is you have a couple of verbs that are irregular in the participle. What I mean by that is if you take the verb bear to see, okay, the participle for that is not vido, okay, or bedo. It would have to be visto, okay, habré visto. Does this sound familiar to any of you?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, Sam, thank you for letting me know. I think it's going to be, I'm looking in your textbook. What I want to do is give you a page. Okay. If you guys want to mark, and I'm glad we're recording this because if you're looking at this later on, page 117 in your textbook, okay? And what this is if you look towards the bottom of the page, you have a list of verbs, excuse me, verbs like abrir, cubrir, decir, decir, escribir, all of those have irregular participles, okay? And so you want to make sure that you go back and check those out. Once again, page 117, okay? Because you guys, I'm not sure if you can hear me too well, but page 117, irregular participles. Just in case you get a question on your quiz that looks like that, in which, excuse me, in which you have to use those irregular participles, you want to make sure that you know which ones they are. Page 117, for example, hacer, hecho. If we're looking at romper, roto, or ver, like I mentioned earlier, visto. Okay. All right.
I have a quick question.
Yes, go for it.
For this section that we're talking about right now with like the past participles, is that like, are we typing that or is that like a multiple choice section?
That's a section, it's a fill in the blank. And so you'll be typing that on there on the actual like space that will be provided, which, as I think I stated earlier, I think it was Julian that had this question, but so if you have something misspelled, Connect is gonna automatically count it wrong, but if it's a place where I can give you partial credit, okay, that will be when I'm able to go back and award that if you just have something that has one letter missing, or if you have something that's slightly misspelled, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right. So any other questions about future versus future perfect? Future versus future perfect. Okay. So guys, we'll go check out now the subjunctive versus the indicative. I have a couple of PowerPoints that are posted for you on ELC under Semana Tres. This is the newest material that we have introduced this week, and I apologize. I'm aware my camera is going away for some reason. I'm not sure why. I'm trying to turn it on. Okay. What I'm using is I have a different webcam that I have plugged in as USB, and it keeps bumping out. It's a much better camera than the one that I have with this laptop, but for some reason it doesn't want to stay plugged in. I don't know. Okay. So I'll keep working with that, but I don't want to take up much more of our time talking about technology issues. So subjunctive versus the indicative. Okay. This is starting on page 230. Page 230. Okay. So what you want to distinguish here, guys, is if you're having a sentence that refers to a future action, this is when you would use the subjunctive over the indicative. Remember, the indicative tense, all it does is it relates a fact or it relates an opinion. Okay. But when you're using the subjunctive here, you're referring to an action that hasn't already happened. Okay. And so we have a list of triggers. You want to make sure that you check those two blue boxes that are on pages 230 and 231. Okay. So in fact, I tell you what, let me just, let's try that. Is that better? Okay. Somewhat better. Okay. All right. So I'm talking about pages 230, 231. You have a list of different triggers. If we look starting with the ones that just use the indicative, okay? Those are where I'm talking about como, porque, puesto que, and ya que. If you see those at all in the sentence, those are buzzwords that let you know that you're using the indicative, because you're talking about specific factual things. Think about it: because, since, due to the fact that, okay? All of those utilize the indicative form, okay? So it's literally explaining facts. But when you go over to the subjunctive, those are things that are contingencies. Those are things that depend on something else to happen first. Okay. So for example, un poco de sol no es malo siempre y cuando te protejas bien la piel. So a little bit of sun is not bad, always and when you can protect yourself from the sun or protect your skin. Okay. So there are things that depend on something else to happen in order for you to be able to use the subjunctive. Okay. So what questions do you guys have about the subjunctive versus the indicative?
Do you have a list of all the trigger words that cause like subjunctive or indicative?
Yeah. So I have a few PowerPoints that are listed on ELC, but if you look on page 231, you're gonna see the long list of the ones that just use the subjunctive. Okay, that's using the acronym SACA PESA. This is sin que, a fin de que, con tal de que, a menos que, para que, en caso de que, siempre y cuando, and antes de que. All right. So any of those are going to trigger for you the subjunctive. Okay.
Then there's also stuff like es necesario. Okay, so like I don't know, like basically when do I when do I know for certain that it's subjunctive, right? Because like, for example, how do I know it's like a wish, doubt, or whatever, like just a general rule?
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up, Rishi. If you see a phrase like es importante que, es bueno que, those are impersonal expressions. We're not going to see those here for this particular quiz. Those are going to come up a little bit later, though, when we get into the past subjunctive. But just right now, like what we're using are just those specific triggers that are listed like in 231. Okay. And so what I'm
Perfect.
saying is like, if you use those, that's when you're going to know to use the subjunctive. Okay.
Gotcha. Okay, that clarifies a lot. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. So I just wanted to bring your attention. I was thinking about some of the resources that I have on ELC, and I have one PowerPoint that's that I made a while back that I think is pretty helpful. Okay. I just want to, yeah, here we go. All right, I'm going to try to share my screen with you again. Okay. All right. All right, so I've got my screen share with you. Can you all see this? It says cláusulas adverbiales.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So I think the last time when I had screen sharing on last time, that's what messed us up. Hopefully it won't be the case. Keeping my fingers crossed. This is a resource that's under, it's called Capítulo 8, Capítulo 8 Actividades. And so this list right here that some of you'll see, it shows you the different usages for the subjunctive. Okay. So if we just right here, that's in red, this is saca pesa, all of the different triggers for the subjunctive. Just to give you an example, no podré hacer esto sin que mi jefe me diga. Okay, that's the subjunctive, guys, because it literally translates out to I will not be able to do that without my boss telling me so. Okay, now the other thing I wanted to mention to you, okay, is that if you have a sentence that already uses the future tense, that's another trigger for you to use the subjunctive. Do you see how in this first sentence I have no podré hacer esto? That's the simple future, no podré. And then that's what lets me know also that I have to use the subjunctive as well. Okay. That's why the last thing that's in this sentence, diga, that's the subjunctive there. No podré hacer esto sin que mi jefe me diga. Okay. If you go back through in the earlier slides of this PowerPoint, you'll see a couple of other reviews for the subjunctive. If you just want a refresher, maybe it's been a while since you've taken 2001 and you want to go back and get a refresher of when to use the subjunctive. But just really quickly, if I'll summarize it here for you, the subjunctive, guys, is only used when you have an action that's a future action that's unsure. Okay, an action that hasn't already happened yet. Okay. So, like for example, looking at con tal de que. Con tal de que means provided that. So, yo voy a tu fiesta con tal de que haya comida gratis. Very classic college student thing to say, right? I will go to your party provided that there is free food. Okay, we can all agree that's definitely a reason to go to a party, right? If there's free food involved. But you're talking about a thing that hasn't happened yet. You haven't gone to the party yet, because you're waiting on there to be this other thing to happen. You're waiting on there to be free food in order for you to be able to go to the party. Okay. Questions? Any questions about when we're using this?
Could you show us where you found this?
Yes. Okay. So this is Capítulo 8 Actividades. If I'm going back to ELC, which I have posted here for you, Semana 3. Okay, hopefully this image didn't startle you as you opened up Semana 3. I just found this recently. It's a really neat statue that's in Bilbao in Spain. That's something I wanted to use to highlight that. But if we're looking at más práctica con las estructuras, yeah, that's the one. So under Semana 3, towards the very bottom there, más práctica con las estructuras, that's that PowerPoint that I'm referring to right here.
All right, thank you.
And like I said, this is going to take you through all of the different usages. Guys, like if we look at the very last thing that I have listed here, antes de que, before, okay, before that, all right. Tenemos que planear la fiesta antes de que llegue mi amigo de su vuelo. We have to plan the party before my friend arrives from his flight, okay? So you're literally referencing here an action that has not already happened. Think about it. In the context of the sentence, my friend hasn't already arrived from his plane, his flight. So therefore, we're talking about this in a future situation. That's what makes us use the subjunctive there. It's a contingency. It's something that will happen after this other thing happens. Okay. Questions? Anything else? So to really kind of show this to you again in a different way, this is something that I want to kind of drive home to you here is that if you have three different types of actions. Okay, those are really good ways to kind of organize this for you. So if it's a habitual action, something that you always do, take a look at this example that I have here. Mi hijo siempre me manda un texto en cuanto llega a casa. So my son always sends me a text as soon as he gets home. Okay, that's a habitual thing. Notice, guys, I see the buzzword here, siempre, which means always. Okay, now that means I need to use the indicative. There's no subjunctive there. There's no future action there. It's a habitual thing, which means I need to use the indicative. Now, if I have the next sentence, look at this. Mi hijo me mandará un texto en cuanto llegue a casa. All right. So here I have it. Mi hijo me mandará. My son will send me a text when he gets home. Okay. And that changes the sentence to give us the subjunctive. The reason why is because I'm referencing something here that is not habitual, that it's just a future action. It's a pending action. As I say, I have here acciones pendientes, pending actions. Okay. It's something that hasn't happened yet, which means that I don't have to use the subjunctive. Okay. And notice too, I've got mandará, will send, from the future tense. That's why it's really important that you have the future down before you get to the subjunctive, because they go hand in hand. When you use the subjunctive, you also have a case of the future tense as well that's listed. So I'm using the same phrase. I'm using the phrase en cuanto, right? That just means as soon as, but it can go either way. It can be indicative in the first sentence because it's a habitual action, and it can be subjunctive in the next sentence because it's a pending action. Okay. Questions? All right. I'm really hoping, so I've got everyone's cameras off, so I don't know what's going through your heads right now, but I'm really hoping that this is helping you. I'm not getting a lot of like feedback in terms of like if this is really helping you feel better for your quiz tomorrow, rather than making you feel like you're more confused. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions at all. The other thing though that I wanted to mention to you right here, we have past actions, acciones pasadas. So for example, aunque la película era buena, la gente no la disfrutó. Okay, so like in the very first sentence that we have here. So although the film was good, people did not enjoy it. Okay. So if it's a past action, something that has already taken place, there's no need to use the subjunctive here. Okay. Because it's clearly been established, it's already taken place, and you won't need to use it. You'll be using just the regular preterite tense. Okay. The regular past tense. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to check really quickly. I think I see a few things popping up in the chat. I just wanted to see. Okay. Okay. All right. Appreciate you say going through the PowerPoint helps a lot. Okay. Perfect. All right. Yeah. This PowerPoint, this is something that I used when we first started to. I think I created this about. Gosh, it's old. It's about 2 years now. Okay. But I used this when we first started. Going on Zoom. Okay. And so I put this on ELC as a resource, and it's still held up. So I do recommend going back over this. I have a couple of other practices for you to look at as well. Okay, that'll give you some other ways to see. Now, some of these slides are going to reference activities. Okay, if you want to practice those activities, that's fine. But some of these are just kind of like activities that I've used in the past, like communicative activities in the classroom. So don't let those frustrate you if you don't see anything that's given there. But if you ever have questions about these, feel free to let me know. You can always send me an email. Okay, so
I had a quick question.
yes.
So I see that with the like with the previous example, could you go up a slide? So
Here?
with the second example, I see that you have the preterite tense.
Yeah.
So for this quiz, would we need another preterite tense?
will you need to know the preterite tense? Okay, so I'm gonna hit stop share. Okay, can anyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, is it still say shared, like, do you see it share with you, or are we just back on Zoom?
Back on just you.
Okay, all right, so I'm just gonna double check while we, since you asked the question, Rishi, I wanna make sure that I give you an honest answer here, okay? As far as I know, you're not gonna need to use the preterite tense, okay? Because if we're going back and forth between the indicative and the subjunctive, you're only using that in the present tense, okay? But if you see, like, for example, if you see the preterite tense listed in the sentence, that's when you're going to be using the indicative. Okay, like, and I had that example, like if I had that, like I said, I had that example listed for you there. But I just want to
Perfect.
check. Okay. Yeah, I'm just actually just making sure. Nope, you won't see the preterite tense listed or any of the past tenses listed. So you
Cool.
won't have
And
to
then-
worry about that.
And then you said if there's a preterite, we use indicative.
Yeah, like well, if it's referencing the past, okay,
Gotcha.
if it's referencing a past action, which means that it could be preterite or the imperfect. But as long as it's talking about something in the past, okay, that's when
Cool.
you're not using the subjunctive at all, because it's a past action. It's already occurred. You can't change it. It's not going to be contingent upon something else, which means that it just stays within the past. Okay. So, great questions though. Perfect. Any other questions about subjunctive versus the indicative? We have two other portions we want to discuss before we call it a night. But anything else? Any other questions about those?
So will the grammar sections be multiple choice, or will we have to fill in, like, would it be like the word is blank and then we have to type it in?
Right. The two grammar portions, great question, Arden. The two grammar portions are both fill in the blank. The only matching that you'll see is going to be coming from the vocabulary at the very beginning of the quiz, which you'll have the drop-down menus. So once you move beyond that, okay, that's when you're going to be getting to the fill in the blank sections. Okay. Anything else? Okay, something I just wanted to mention to you. So if you look at the calendar, you'll see that I said revisar actividades, página 234. If you ever see on the calendar to go over the activities in the textbook, you're more than welcome to do so if you just want to check for understanding, but you're not required. I think I had that question that came up about a week ago. Is there a place to submit those? That's just if you want additional practice, you can use what's in the textbook. But you would just send those to me. You're not required to do those activities in any other way. So you have two other sections, guys. I just wanted to briefly mention to you, okay? So one of the sections is a brief writing passage. And what I mean by that is you're given a question and you just have to respond to that question, okay, in the box that's going to be provided to you, okay? And what I want to just sort of remind everybody is that you want to just make sure that you're providing the minimum sentence count that's given to you, okay? So I just want to make sure that I verify for you before we close everything out. You're going to be writing a minimum of 4 sentences. And this is like, for example, en tu opinión, ¿cuál es un problema medioambiental? Okay, so like in your opinion, what is a major environmental problem? Okay, and then that's an open-ended question. So you'll use what your own opinion is, and then you'll expand on that idea. Okay, so that's the next to last section that's on the quiz. And the final section is a listening portion. And for this quiz, it's a true false section. And what you'll have is a recording that you'll listen to. You can listen to it as many times as you want. However, I just want to remind you, this is a time quiz. It's 40 minutes. So you don't want to spend too long on that section. But like I said, you can listen to that recording as many times as you want, and it's true false. Okay, so it'll hopefully go by pretty quickly for you.
I had 2 questions.
Go for it.
So for the like subjunctive, do you have a list of the irregulars that we have? Or should we just like look them up type of thing?
The irregular subjunctive, that's going to be earlier in chapter 4 of your textbook, I believe. If you want, that's a great question though, actually, just to make sure we're on the same page. So you're talking about, for example, if you're using a verb that's irregular in the subjunctive, like the verb hacer, that's what's called a yo-go verb. So in the present tense is yo hago, and to form the subjunctive, you take off the letter O and then you just add opposite endings, right? So that's haga, hagas, haga. Yeah, let me just make sure. I think, okay, maybe chapter 5. Ah, perfect. Here we go. Guys, you would want to bookmark page 144. That's chapter 5. Okay. Page 144 in your text is going to give you a multitude of different conjugations, of different blue boxes that are going to highlight for you all of the different irregular verbs in the subjunctive. And so that's going to be where I'm going to refer you to practice those irregular forms.
Wait, could you repeat that? What page? Sorry?
Yeah, page 144. 144. Okay. So I mentioned to you another page to look at earlier. 117 is where you want to go back and look at the irregular participles. That's like visto, cubierto, escrito. And then on page 144, this is the irregular subjunctive forms. Okay, this is like, for example, salir, salga, okay, or ir is completely irregular, goes to vaya, saber, sepa, okay, ser goes to sea, all on page 144. Okay.
Okay, and then my last question is just like a little formatting question. So when I do like conjugations and stuff, like I tend to like write down the conjugations to see if it like looks right and stuff. Are we allowed to scratch paper, or are we only supposed to be looking at the screen the whole time?
Great question. So you're going to be given a space on your quiz. It's going to be a whiteboard, and it's built in through Partorio. When I set everything up, it's just a sort of a whiteboard that you'll have access to jot things down. If you prefer to use a blank sheet of paper, what I'm going to ask is that you already have to do like a scan of your surroundings when you start the quiz. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask that you just hold that paper up and just show me that it is blank. Okay. But I'm also going to encourage you to, you can use the whiteboard that's listed for you on Connect. It's either one you want to do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So guys, we talked about the different portions of your quiz. We talked about the vocabulary. We talked about the 2 grammar sections. We talked about the writing portion. We even talked about the listening portion. So that was the format of the quiz. Sort of, if you wouldn't mind, let me know if you have any other questions, or if you feel like this was helpful in any way. Kind of, I don't know, give me a thumbs up, or if you feel like you need some more help, let me know. I'm trying it. Okay. All right, Sam. Good. Okay. Okay. All right. If you still feel sort of unsure, that's okay too. Perhaps you'd like to send me an email. We can discuss some things further. Remember, guys, I'm also doing another review session tomorrow at 10:30. Okay, that's the kind of balance those people that would rather meet in person. Meet earlier versus those that would meet later in the afternoon. So if you would like to come back tomorrow at 10:30 on Zoom, we can discuss any of your questions then. Other than that, what we'll do, how about we call it here? Okay, I apologize for all the technology issues that we had earlier. Fortunately, we were able to continue. But if you have any other questions, feel free to hang behind. Other than that, I'm going to stop the recording, and we'll end it there.